Welcome to Cash Talk, the podcast where we delve into the depths of finance, business, and life itself. I'm your host, John Cachia, a multi-award-winning wealth advisor with a passion for empowering ambitious Australians to confidently achieve financial freedom. Hey everyone, before we get started, this is a quick reminder that everything in this podcast is of a general nature and nothing has been tailored to your personal circumstances. So please seek personal financial advice before acting on this information. And welcome back to Cash Talk, and today I'm joined by Ayten. Ayten, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. As you can see, we've done a little bit of a repaint of the podcast for those that are watching, but for those that are listening, we've done a little bit of a reno of the podcast room. Feels a little bit different, doesn't it? Just not so bright.
Yeah, it's a bit more dark. Was that your idea?
Yeah. So I'm trying to go to dark mode on my phone.
Yeah.
Nah, just joking. So just think it looks a little bit more appealing in regards to what we're trying to achieve here. So we can talk about the war for a long time, but let's get into it. So today we're going to be speaking about why and when to see a financial advisor. And, you know, it's a common question that we get asked if it's at the barbecue or at an event or at a function, or it's something that, you know, a lot of people are just speaking about. You know, is it a good time for me to see a financial advisor? And also, why should I see one? So we want to kind of unpack that, because seeing a financial advisor is not for everyone. As much as people will want to say, you know, it's for absolutely everyone, it's not. And I want to be honest from the get-go. There is a few things that a financial advisor can do, even though I believe personally that a financial advisor is for the majority of people and more than people think. We want to kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of when and why to see a financial advisor. So, you know, Ayten, I know that obviously you're a firm believer of seeing financial advice, and you probably get the same questions that I was just discussing. What's maybe some of the reasons that, you know, you think someone should see a financial advisor?
Yeah, that's a really great question. With everything happening, there's a lot of talk about, you know, financial advice. Is it appropriate? Is it not appropriate? And a lot of people think that they can do it themselves, which is one of the issues that we have, not just in financial planning, I think, in other areas as well. But some of the things that, you know, people who are maybe feeling like stuck, no clarity, they're not, like they're earning good money, but not really moving anywhere. So kind of seeking a financial advisor will help help you move forward, but also seek that clarity. Because I know, and I think I've mentioned this before, people who come to Thriving Wealth, you have a great way of trying to extract their goals and objectives from someone, which they may not have thought about before. Because in that discovery chat that you have with them, you know, you ask them probing questions, essentially. I've worked at other financial planning firms, and, you know, clients come in, oh, what are your goals and objectives? Oh, I want to have money, I want to build wealth, but they're not really getting down to the nitty gritty and talking about, well, what do you actually want to achieve? Because numbers on a screen, that looks great. Of course, everyone wants to be billionaires, but at the end of the day, if you're trying to work towards some number, it doesn't really mean anything unless you're trying to work towards a goal.
So it's really interesting you say that, because like I very much find that there's a lot of people today that, because they're trying to do it themselves, they're getting like information overload that's causing them to be stuck both mentally and then financially. Yeah. And so, you know, you can go into ChatGPT these days. You know, I'm even seeing like, pages where it's like, don't see a financial advisor, just use ChatGPT for these prompts. And, you know, it's all good and well. It's great to have ChatGPT. You know, I use ChatGPT for certain things, and on Ayten, you use ChatGPT for certain things. But, you know, if that be Google, if that be Gemini, if that be Gronk, you know, or whatever it is from X, this is actually just causing a bigger problem, which is just more information. Okay, so, you know, when you think about it, if you're sitting at the kitchen table, maybe speaking to your partner, and, you know, you've talked about it, but you kind of put it in the too hard basket because you've got kids growing up, you've got schooling, you've got after school stuff, activities. What's actually happening is that they're not spending the time to actually get clarity, take a step back and say, okay, well, is this too much information actually causing me to have issues? Now, this too much information causes actually two sub-problems, and we need to be aware of this. Number one is people put it in the too hard basket, which is there's so much information, I'm just going to stay doing what I have been for so long. Now, it's very, very mindful for you to think that's okay. And that might be doing like things that are comfortable. But if you're feeling stuck already and you're not moving forward, you're just not getting out of your comfort zone. And what could end up happening to you is that you get 10 years down the track and then suddenly realize, oh, I could have been doing it a better way. I could have been doing it more effectively. I could have been, paying off my debt in a different way. I could have been tax minimal, whatever the main thing. Yeah. So, and then the second part of this is around confirmation bias, where you've got so much information and then you kind of go on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is, and you go down this rabbit hole following a few people, and then your mind starts to play tricks on you saying that the information that you're confirming is true and correct. Now, it's not just in financial advice. This is the same in conspiracy theories where people think, oh, I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. They're watching YouTube. They're going through all of this stuff. The reality is that in a lot of fields, not just financial advice, there's usually these expert opinions. Now, don't get me wrong. Experts can have different views, but it's taking that expert on that third party outside to then make you realize, hey, your brain has been tricking you. You've actually been searching for the information to confirm that original thought. And that is as dangerous as the first one, because that might mean that you've gone 15 years down the track going down some kind of strategy that's actually moving you further away from becoming financially free and achieving your goals rather than closer to it.
Yeah.
So it takes a sense of problem awareness, Ayten, for that person in that scenario to go, yep, you know what, we need expert advice because we're feeling like we have so many different options. Which way do we go?
Yeah.
Or we're feeling like we're stuck. Which way do we go? And I think, Ayten, that also comes into you've got to be honest with yourself. What's the lever as well too that's putting you in that position for you to determine if a financial advisor is appropriate? So one, there's the psychological side of things and the behavioral side of things. Two, there's the financial resources side of things. I was speaking to someone yesterday who wanted to work with us, great, friendly guy, coachable, growth mindset, blah, blah, blah. But there was two things that was meaning that I couldn't work with him or we couldn't work with him. Number one was he simply wasn't earning enough.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the nicest way. The cost of living has gone up. This guy was not, Lambo in the driveway. Mrs. wasn't Louis Vuitton bags coming in every 3 weeks. This was just like a normal Aussie based out in Perth. Anyway. And he just wasn't earning enough to achieve the life he wants. He wants to save for a deposit. He wants all of that stuff. So we worked together about just discussing, before he even worked with me, around 2 or 3 things that he can go away with and work on elevating his income to get that surplus cash flow, to be able to grab that surplus cash flow to then put into, his financial future and their financial future. So we have to be honest that if you don't have, I would say, I'm going to go and take a stab and say, $2,000 a month of surplus that you can call on, be either to extra repayments into your house, savings for your financial future, invest for your financial future. It's sometimes very hard to justify working with a client at that scenario. Now, that is not the only caveat. Obviously, there's, you can have someone who's got a lot of moving parts not working. Yeah. So you've got assets positions, you've got liability positions, you've got complexities of time. So we're looking for certain pain points where a advisor can provide clarity and ultimately optimization of the finances. But whenever I'm speaking to a prospective client, I'm always focusing on when they're working, and I'm not talking about huge asset positions here. So I'm not talking about people with millions of dollars in investment accounts and multi-entity structures and all them. All of those guys, they have complexities where an advisor needs to optimize tax minimization, asset protection. And it's pretty clear of day that if you want things run properly at that stage, you don't cut your own grass, you get a gardener. You know what I mean? You get a financial advisor. But for the people that are umming and ahhing, I'm trying to kind of work within that network. It's around do I have the cash flow? Because if I don't have the cash flow, is that the systemic issue that is causing all of my other issues? And in most cases, the answer is yes. Yeah. Now, there's obviously the secondary part of that is they might be spending too much as well. I'm seeing a lot of people that come to see us, $500,000 combined income, $600,000, $700,000, so on and so forth, and yet they still can't save a dollar because their lifestyle has been put in a position where they've got a $10,000 increase in their wage, but their lifestyle has increased by $30,000, and most of it is used by debt, to be able to kind of fund that, to be in that position. So, I'd say that it's more around, do you have the capability to have a $2,000 a month surplus? And in most cases, you can only cut your expenses to a certain position.
Correct.
And also, even if you are overspending, you can't cut significantly in one go.
Yeah.
So, some people are like, all right, sweet, I am going to cut my expenses. If let's say they spend $100,000 a year, I'm going to cut it to $50,000. That's like you saying that you're going to go on a strict diet and you're going to fast for the next 3 months. Like, the reality is you're not going to fast for 3 months. Let's just try and fast for 1 day a week. In your finances, that's kind of trimming the fat, of your finances. So it's, in most cases, there's a cash flow element that needs to be assessed in combination with how you're feeling about your finances from a psychological perspective, from a clarity perspective, and all of those things.
Yeah. And you make really good points there. Actually, one thing that I did want to touch on is that a lot of the income that you're talking about, so the demographic that we kind of work with is like 30s, 40s, kind of like the, pre-retirees.
Yeah.
Not so much the pre-retirees and the retirees. And I think there is a general consensus that when you get to your 50s and get to your 60s, that's when you should seek financial advice. But I think Thriving Wealth is proving that actually you do need financial advice early on, because at that point it might be too late. Because you're getting to your 50s, you've got your debt paid off, but you've got nothing else. You've got no other assets. You've got no other passive income potentially coming through. And there's only very limited things that you can do. Yes, you might have, a lot of cash flow, what you were talking about, in the earlier on, if you've got a young family, you might not have that same cash flow, but you've got the time, which is really important.
And I think the other thing as well too is that the psychology around like how people want to live life has changed in the last 15, 20 years. And so, I did on Instagram a bit of like a stat sheet. Global life expectancy is 75 years of age. Global retirement age is 65. So if you look at it globally, we're working to 65, and then the average death is 10 years later. And people are realizing that.
Yeah.
People are going like, hey, listen, I'm not going to do what my post-World War II parents did, which was work, get riddled by health, and then not be able to enjoy it, but then have all of this money. Now, it's great that, parents are passing this down, or maybe they were wasteful with their money themselves. The clients that we're working with and where we're seeing is to say, cool, well, the earlier I start on this, the better. I don't want to be forced to work until 65. I want the option to be able to maybe cut back my hours, have choices when me and my family need it the most. And so it's this change of this mindset where people are going, well, no, that's a decision that needs to be done really early on. Now, we even help people in their 20s to be able to make these decisions.
Yeah.
But really, it's around, do you have the mindset to be open to have a third party to help you navigate through all of those things? And the reality is if you think about your life 10 years ago, and I could go 20 years, but if you just think about your life 10 years ago, and we're recording this in 2025, so if you think about this like 10 years ago, 2015, if I think about everything that's happened in my life in the last 10 years, how did I even get through? Let alone, like, first thing that comes to mind is obviously how old I was. At that point I had no children. Like yourself, we had no children. It was a different life. I was in a couple scenario. The housing situation was different. The business was in a totally different scenario. But I don't go thinking to all of like the tax changes and legal changes and all the opportunities I could have jumped on by budgetary changes. And that's what an advisor clearly does. A part of their role is help you to, look at your strengths and your weaknesses of your finances and any opportunities or threats, and then jump on the opportunities, get rid of those threats or protect your threats, build up the weaknesses to become strengths, and keep your strengths. It's a bit of a SWOT analysis that's consistently done.
Correct.
along the way to maintain the optimization of your finances so that you're not wasteful with money, and then point them completely to the alignment of that plan. Now, the other issue going to about the guy in WA is around one of the other reasons why we couldn't work together as well too was he was so up in the air with him and his partner on what they actually wanted. And I could have got in and said, listen, come on, I'll map this out for you, blah, 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 blah. But what actually I did was I gave him this 2-page document. It's what they call a personal vision track organizer. If you type it onto Google, it'll be available, a personal family VTO. And you write your vision for yourself, yeah? And you write like where you want to be in 10 years, where you want to be in 3 years, where you want to be in 1 year. Because as much as I can help them to bring that to life, I still need some kind of surface level understanding of what they want in life.
Yeah.
And I kind of use a building analogy. It's like, let's say you go to see an architect. The architect's going to ask you, okay, cool, well, what else do you want to build? And so imagine the person sitting there and going, I don't know. Architect's going to go, okay, cool. Well, is it double story? Is it single story? Is it 4 bedrooms? Is it whatever? And the person replying to you going, well, I want a 4-story. My wife wants a unit. And you start to discuss it. It was clearly a discussion that they haven't even had. And so what I wanted to do was give them away some homework to say, hey, listen, we will work with you at one point. But right now, what I want you to come in is just give me a skeleton version of what you want. Now, like the architect, I don't expect them to know what tiles they want yet. I don't expect them to know what finishes they want and what doorknobs they need and the size of the bed. I'll work that out. But if you don't know what house you want to build together as a rough sketch or what financial future you look like, it's very hard to point your money to that. And ultimately, it actually came from a mismatch in values. You know, it's sometimes when I have deep conversations with existing clients like you would as well too in regards to, private schooling for the children or not private schooling for the children. You know, one is fixated on private schooling and the other one's like, nah, I'm going to save that money. They're going to public school and I'm going to invest there. And we've got to work with them about where that mutual agreement lies or who's going to kind of, go one way or the other and who's not going to resent the other one for that decision. So there's obviously a lot of psychology that comes with that. But when you're coming in, I think what I'm trying to get at is you need to have the mindset to be open and a growth mindset, not a fixed mindset, the willingness to change, and then also have the resources from a cash flow position and or from an asset position to be able to see a financial advisor and obviously pay for a financial advisor's services. But then coupled with all of this is to understand this is not a transaction, this is a relationship. Because when we go back all the last 10 years that has happened in my life, my dream of being financially free doesn't change. I want the option to be able to not have to be a slave for money. I want to be able to have choices and watch my special moments of my children and have that never changes if they're a core value of what you believe. What will change is, 10 years ago, I was adamant I wanted a Porsche 911 Turbo. That was my thing. I wanted a Porsche 911 Turbo. But as I matured and as I grew up and, whatever's going to be the case, you know what? Actually, X is more important than Y. Yeah.
And it's important because obviously as you kind of go through different stages in life, like you say, things change. Like, that's a dream for a 20-year-old John. This is a dream for a 30-year-old John. A dream for a 40-year-old John will be something different. And that's what we kind of work through with our clients. And some of the things that you mentioned before, we've actually had some clients where you've spoken to them initially, they've gone away, they've done their homework, they've elevated their income, they've come back, and now they're in a position to receive that financial advice. Some of the things that, people might say when, someone is seeing a financial advisor, well, why are you paying someone else to, tell you what to do with your money? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
It's actually interesting. I had this conversation. It's funny how clients become friends. It's a very interesting thing. So our kids became friends and we're at a local pizzeria and we're having some pizzas together. And he's like, what's interesting? He goes, when I tell my friends that I'm paying for a financial advisor X amount a month, they think I'm just dumb.
Yeah.
Because it's boring. It's not, sexy. And, I've got this kind of tagline at the moment, which is like, boring finances, sexy bedroom. They can't be swapped.
Yeah.
They're the other way, you know? And it's interesting, like he had a little bit of a laugh when I said that. He goes, it's true, yeah. He's like, everything you've done for me and your team is boring from an actual strategy and a solution perspective. So if someone grabs it on paper and they review the paper, it's boring. But what I want you to know is that boring is actually good when it comes to finances. And there's a few reasons why. Most people, when they see finances and see boring, like cash flow planning, investing, superannuation, all of that stuff, there's no get-rich-quick schemes. Because when clients come to us, they're coming to us for the least amount of risk for the highest potential return. So ultimately, actually what they're saying when you get to the core value is, we want certainty of achieving this life. Okay. So as an advisor, I've got kind of two ways. I can be the rogue person, the unlicensed person that at the moment, which we're fighting up against, and go to this client and saying, you know what? There's a few stocks that I reckon are going to go bang. Let's go. You know what? Crypto's doing really well. Everyone believes in it. Let's go in here. Tick, 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 tick. But listen, I need to put a caveat around it. You're either going to be financially free by 50 or you're going to be working till you're 80. Okay? So boring is actually certainty. Now, don't get me wrong. It gets a little bit sexier when you're in the position of being financially free because you know that the destination has already been achieved. You've already accomplished things and things can be done on like this autopilot scenario in regards to, when I mean autopilot, it's the same strategy that's applied. There's a caveat to this is that the mindset needs to also be consistent. But once you're above that, like if you're worth 10 mil and we only need 8 mil worth of assets to be able to kind of do what you want to do, 2 mil. Not to say if you want to kind of roll the dice, but if you're going down the pathway to say like, you know, hey, Thriving Wealth, or hey, John, that 2 mil, I don't care if I lose it. I just want your expert opinion in regards to some positions that you might want to take. Yeah, you can do it. Now, do I do that with my money? No, because I have my energy focused in other areas of my life. I want to spend time with my kids. I don't want to be, I want to spend quality time with my kids.
Yeah.
I don't want to be there going, oh, I should go long on this. I should go short on this. And people are like, oh, John, but yeah, you could make a motta. I'm not chasing returns.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not what I'm trying. I'm chasing outcomes. And for my clients, they're chasing outcomes. So ultimately, for that client, he's like, John, I get it. Obviously, that's why we've been with you for years and these are the results that we've had. But this is the same guy that, in his early 40s looks, he's going to listen to this podcast, so he's going to get a big head, but he looks very good. Like he trains all the time.
Yeah.
He's consistent. He gets a plan, he sticks to it, he's consistent, and he looks fit. He spends time with his kids, his holidays. Like from the outside, he's doing everything. He's elevating his income. He's meeting all of his goals. For his age, and I don't like to use comparisons, but like for his age, he's far exceeding what other people at his age are doing. But he's got the discipline to say, hey, listen, I understand you think it's boring. I understand you think I shouldn't pay for it. But you're the same people, and he even says this, you're the same people complaining about being stuck. Correct. You're the same people that are complaining about, I've lost money on this, or they'll only tell him of his winners, but all of a sudden he can read through it because he's like, you're telling me of your winners, but you're still feeling crap about your finances, where I'm enjoying life, more fulfilled, and I just don't need to worry about this. Yeah. So it's interesting that people say what you said, but I do get it. Yeah. Because when I look at other fields, it's like, why should I go see a doctor when I've got ChatGPT now? Why should I see a lawyer if I've got Google? Yeah. Like, why should I do this? I can access this information whenever I want.
Correct. Well, it's like going to see an accountant, right? Yeah. Well, why am I paying a couple $100s to see an accountant when I can just do it myself? Yeah, great, you can. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, how long is it taking you, to collate all the information and input that information into your own tax return? So that's taking time away from you when you could have just got your accountant to download the information and do it for you in a matter of like 1.5 hours, 2 hours, whatever it is. So you're now using your precious time. I mean, I've got a young family. You've got a young family. I'm not going to sit there for hours on end trying to do this when I can just outsource that because that's where you're your time, the value that, you've got with your family, whatever it is that you'd like to do, maybe, hobbies. I'm not going to spend my time trying to be a professional when someone else can do that. And I can spend my time doing something that's more productive, more worthwhile for me.
But Ayten, I'm going to save money, so I'm going to use the debit. But I'm going to save money.
Yeah.
See, the wealthy realize that the actual most valuable commodity is time.
Yeah.
Very, very early on, I still remember having this discussion with my mum about me when she goes, we're talking about my dream life. And I said back then, it's, I want a chauffeur, I want a gardener, I want a cleaner. And she's like, shut up, John, and it was just this thought I had rocks in my head.
Yeah.
My gardener to cut my grass back and front is $55. All right. $55. He comes, he drives to my house, he puts petrol in his lawnmower. He cuts the grass way better than I do, cleans it all up, and off he done. Yeah?
Yeah.
If I quantify my time,
Yeah.
even at $25 an hour, let's say a base rate to say $25 an hour, and I multiply how much time is done, what have I lost in regards to my time? Now, I need to be very mindful there's a second part to this. Where am I pointing the time that I've gained? So the issue you've got is if you spend and you're not getting time back that is then productive elsewhere. Okay? So when you think about my accountant who listens to this podcast, I have an accountant that charges me money and I pay him for his services. Now, if I went to my accountant and said, hey, listen, how much time have you spent collating all of my financials, all of my entities, going through all of that, the hours would be huge. But at the same time when he's doing that, I'm running Thriving Wealth, I'm operating.
Correct.
So I'm being productive with my time. Now, there's monetary maximization of your time and then non-monetary maximization of my time. The cutting of the grass is not because I'm going to be working more, but is it worth me getting an hour of time on a morning with myself? So rather than them watching dad outside cutting the lawns, it's not saying, sorry, son, I need to go do all the gardening, got to do all of that, or waking up with them and spending quality time with them. Now, it also needs to be quality time. It can't be this do you get me what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's focusing my energy and my view on time. Now, in honest truth, there's a reason why I have a financial advisor. Because I believe that my financial advisor is taking away the time that I need to focus on mine and my wife's affairs, blah, blah, blah. Secondary to that is I'm also aware that if I'm telling people that they've got behavioral things that they can't see, they've got invisible ceilings that they can't see, isn't it stupid for me to go, oh, well, then I'm different? No. It is proven, it is impossible to disconnect your emotions from your money. I don't know anyone that is completely logical on every single thing they do.
Yeah.
There is always a point in time when they're like, oh, I want that deviation from plan.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to make that thing because... Now, the advisor will always base it on what's in your best interest, both for your life and for your finances. However, there is a caveat that good financial advisors will understand that life is not all financial.
Correct.
And so for people that are coming here and thinking about when and why do I see a financial advisor, there is many times over my last few decades, and Ayten already, where we're talking to clients and saying, well, this is not a financially better off scenario, but it is right for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, back onto the boredom, the discussion of why I pay think about the time. Think about, are you equipped with the knowledge and the expertise to make those decisions that are providing you with the certainty of achieving the outcome? And if you can prove to me that you can psychologically break through these invisible ceilings that you're not even aware of that they are because they're invisible, then do you need to see a financial advisor? And not every financial advisor is the same. Listen, we've got to be open.
Correct.
There's different ones that do different things. There's advisors that just do portfolio management. They'll just focus on a bucket of money that you've got and then investing it and then allocating it accordingly. That's not what we do.
No.
Thriving Wealth is very unique in regards to the lifestyle adaptation into your life and also, the goal-centric, value-centric kind of behavioral-based financial advice that we deliver. So yes, you need to find the right financial advisor to meet your needs, but this person that I'm talking about, like, he's just like, well, I don't really care about whatever everyone else thinks is because, John, I remember what you really said to me. You said to me that I will judge you on the way that I feel about my life and the progress that I'm making to fulfillment. And he is.
Yeah.
And obviously a subsequent of that, his finances are also looking quite healthy.
Yeah. You touched on a really good point there, actually, about how do I know what the right financial advisor for me is? And like you said, there are different areas. So, people who are retiring, people are specialised in that area. People specialise in insurance only. People specialise in the portfolio side of things. And like you say, we're more of a holistic practice. So we look at we'll look at all those things, but we're also the behavioural side of things, which I think is really important because unless you know what what behaviours kind of got you to where you are, how are we going to break through those barriers to go forward?
Unfortunately, in my job, I've seen a lot of wealthy people that are miserable. Yeah, and it's because they're pointing money to making more money.
Yes.
With not working on at the same time what makes you more fulfilled. And so we believe wholeheartedly, and I won't deviate from this, is that the money is the vehicle that you will use to create fulfillment in your life. If you just make money for the sake of making money and don't point to fulfillment, this is where you see financial stress happen. This is where you see marriage breakdowns happen. This is where you see people with a hell of a lot of money and not connection to kids, family, blah, 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 blah.
Correct.
You need to point your money to all aspects of your life, ultimately buying more time to truly point yourself in the direction that you want to go to. And if you're not certain about it, this is where you need to explore if financial advice is right for you.
Yeah.
But in the first half of the conversation, there is certain things where that don't work for some people. And in some cases, there is pre-work that I want people to do before they even see us, to get them in the mindset, to get them into their, maybe their cash flow into that position. Or there's sometimes where I might be simply like, you know what? I've looked at your finances. You're fine. I can't quantify us working with you right now, but I want you to come back. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
Now those boom, boom, booms are about, resources, mindset, maybe not alignment in regards to planning. That's where they need to kind of come and say, okay, well, yeah, we're going to go on our own for 6 months and then we're going to come back. And I will say this for everyone. There's a lot of books that I recommend people read, okay? Really to kind of open yourself up to this. One is very popular, The Psychology of Money, okay? Very, very good book. I think that gives you a really good understanding about the behavioral side and the psychology around what we do here and what you need to be aware of. The two little books, so the little book of Behavioral Investing by James Mortimer, great book. Talks about, once you've obviously understood the psychology, a big part of that is like, when do I invest? How do I invest? To understand how much behavior is sitting behind your financial decisions.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of read those two books, that should open your mind in regards to some of these invisible ceilings that I'm talking about that people may not be aware of. And then the other little book as well too is the little book of Index-Based Investing by Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard. Some really, really good things about the financial world, how advisors and investment managers and people like that have sometimes taken people for advantage or done things in a bad way. And I need to kind of talk about the elephant in the room. A big part of where people's apprehension is around bad advice. Okay? But I'll tell you something. Yes, bad advice can be terrible, but good advice you can't pay enough for.
Yeah.
Okay? And especially the consumer protections that are now in place for financial advisors to deliver advice. All advice needs to go through what we call 7 safe harbor steps, okay, to ensure that all advice is in your best interests and has the full intention of putting you in a better position. Now, that's not just a he said, she said scenario. That needs to be proven, yeah? It needs to be documented and justified to the point that you're seeing a licensed person that's doing their utmost for you to move the dial forward. And so those days that are even what Jack Bogle was talking about and what other people have spoken about, the 15,000 odd advisors that are left in the country, not to say that I can kind of say that everyone is good, but the ones that are left, okay, are good people.
Yeah.
They're not in for things. They're looking to move forward. And like you said, Ayten, before, and like I touched on, businesses are different in the way that they approach things, but the regulatory framework remains the same.
Correct.
With the consumer protections as well too. So
Yeah. Just one thing that I do before we close up, but often it's not just about the philosophy in the firm. It's, do you feel comfortable with that person? Because you're going to be working one-on-one with that person, with that advisor for a long time. They're going to know like details about your financials, deep information about your life, your health, whatever it might be. You're going to have that deep, probably a relationship that you may not have with even your friends. So you need to feel comfortable. And often I feel like if you're coming to Thriving Wealth to seek advice and, work together, I think it's a really good idea to seek other financial practices as well, just to see the comparison as to, okay, well, what are they offering? What's Thriving Wealth offering? And which way do I want to go? What do I, what's really important to me? And which of those firms are going to be better for what I'm looking for?
correct. And like, Ayten, I know when you came here, first thing she was saying to me is like, John, this is like, I'm in a different occupation. Yeah. And that is because of not just like the process and the philosophy, but also like the people and stuff like that. One of the big things as well too is it's my role to kind of allocate the right advisor to meet your needs and the team that's going to support you in a dedicated team scenario. 98% of the decision is based on, do I think that they're going to be able to like hang out together?
Yeah.
Because all advisors, yes, there's advisors with more experience, especially in some areas, but obviously if they're working in Thriving Wealth, the kind of capability set is very much the same. There's small differences inside of some slightly different niches, and that's kind of where that 5 or 2% comes in. But the majority of it is, would you hang out with the person? Because it's a long-term relationship. It's not a transaction. You want to kind of have a plan for 10, 20 years, and you want to see that come to life. Is that person going to be on that journey? Are you going to be opening up? Are you going to be able to trust them? Well, that comes everything outside of the finances, actually. Yeah. So it's a really, really good point, and it's something that we don't shy of. People, before they come to see us, go to see other financial advisors, see what they do, and then come to Thriving Wealth. Because we do believe in what we do. Yeah. And we, I can honestly tell you, because I kind of ran the numbers, like out of 10 people that inquire to work with us, only 3 actually get through out of the 10. So 70% are either not ready, not a right fit, whatnot. But, for people that are considering it and working with a financial advisor, it's around, I've built a reputation personally over the last 2 decades that, if I do something, it's going to happen. Yeah. And it's a reputation that kind of I don't hold lightly. They kind of say that, your reputation is like actually what makes you vulnerable in a way. Yeah. And, do you have a good reputation? Do you have a bad reputation? It's actually the reputation that you want to uphold in society, of where you sit in society. Another whole conversation. But I'm not going to bring on someone who I don't think matches with us. I'm not going to bring someone who I don't think we're going to be able to add value to and achieve the plan that we are going to do. So, and then the other aspect is around, are they ready now? Some people either come too early, or they've got a big change that needs to happen before they come to see us. So, in say 50% of the 70%, it's, I want you to go away and do X, Y, and Z, and then come back to work with us. So great thing to say. Now, I know we've been going for a while. That was actually really deep, and I really liked, obviously, kind of unwrapping all of that. And hopefully you're loving these podcasts as well too. I am loving this new setup, and hopefully it comes out good. But, if you are liking these, make sure you like and subscribe to all of our video channels like YouTube and whatnot, and obviously on music platforms as well. And feel free to share it to friends and family so you can spread the word for us. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Ayten, for joining us again. See you guys. Cheers.